Hi, my name is Nathaniel, and I have some angry gay feelings. So the point that triggered me to sort of make this whole rant video blah 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 is the subject of this painting I'm working on. So I'll start everything with a disclaimer. I am by no means an expert in history, and I am also not Iban, so I did not grow up with this culture, and don't take my word as gospel. So this is just my own thoughts and my own opinions based on the things that I've read. So yeah, let's go back to the subject of this painting. So I am working on a painting of the Iban god of healing, known as Menjaya Raja Manang. The legend has it, so in the ancient days, before any healing rituals were created, there is a village elder, and this village elder has a sickly wife, and one day his wife was seriously ill, and out of desperation the village elder asked his own brother to undergo a transformation to become the first Manang Bali. So before I continue with the legend, so Manangs are essentially Iban shamans, and Manang Bali roughly translates to transformed shaman. And Manang Balis are born as men, and they undergo this transformation to essentially become a woman. So they'll wear women's clothes, and they'll also behave in the more traditionally feminine manner, and they'll live their lives as women. And these shamans, they are considered one of the most powerful shamans in the community. So they'll receive prophecies from Menjaya Raja Manang in the forms of dreams, and they'll usually lead all of the rituals in their village. And back to Menjaya Raja Manang, after they transformed into a Manang Bali, they are able to gain power to create all of the healing rituals, and with those healing rituals they are able to heal their sister-in-law, and these are the healing rituals that are passed down to the future shamans. And while I was researching this particular subject, and I was not able to find any art, any text depicting the deity, which I find very weird, because one would expect that any culture would want to record their own mythology in the form of art or text or any other media. And it is quite strange that I wasn't able to find anything on this topic. And so I had this thought that came up in my head out of nowhere. The reason why I am not able to find any art, any literature about this subject could be due to the actions of Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka, because apparently some time ago they burned and buried a lot of indigenous Sarawakian texts, which is technically cultural genocide. And it's very surprising that no one talks about this. And the actions of DPP mirrors the actions of a lot of colonizers. So the colonizers, when they find land and when they want to colonize a piece of land, they'll usually want to erase the indigenous people. So what they would do is to erase a group of people, you will need to erase their culture. So the first sort of most easiest step is to erase their text, their literature, their art, and any other records of that culture. And this sort of reminds me of what the British Empire has done to queer culture all over the world. So let's talk about history and how the British Empire essentially exported homophobia, transphobia, and other phobias related to the LGBT people. So in the reign of Henry VIII, the British Parliament passed the Buggery Act, also known as Section 377, and this law outlaws unnatural sexual acts which includes homosexual relation, sodomy, and all that other stuff. And this law eventually expands to discriminate people who do not conform to the heteronormative culture of the era. And when the British went abroad to colonize land, they will usually implement the law that already existed in Britain into the law of the land that they have colonized. And that includes, of course, Section 377. So when the British decides to leave, the law that has already been implemented by the British will usually be carried forward into the law of the newly independent nation. And that's quite applicable in Malaysia as well. Section 377 is indeed codified into the Malaysian law when Malaysia achieves its independence in 1957. So in 1963, that's when East Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, combines with Tanah Melayu to form the new Malaysian Federation. And the law of Tanah Melayu is then carried forward to East Malaysia as well. And during the union of Sabah and Sarawak and Tanah Melayu, there is a need to create a unified Malaysian identity essentially. So the narrative behind the formation of a national identity centers mostly around the Malay Muslim practices, and this has led to Section 377 continuing to remain in Malaysian law, and also Islam being used as an excuse for a lot of Muslim authority figures and authority bodies to further perpetuate the discrimination against LGBT people. And that is something I find quite sad, because these queer people existed in this land way before the British Empire even set foot here. And these queer people usually hold quite a significant role in their own community. And as the British came and left and the new Malaysian law is enacted, these queer people have essentially been seen as a social outcast. And in the efforts of forming a national identity under the Jalur Gemilang flag, we have sort of forgotten or overlooked the vibrancy that have already existed in this land, and that is quite sad and it's such a waste. So yeah, that's all I need to rant about. And I understand that, like, you know, some people might get triggered because you're homophobic or you're transphobic, but I don't really give a shit. So report to the police if you want to, arrest me if you need to. So kindly fuck off.